So is this what you guys pretty much saw? This type of stuff? Okay. Okay.
This is what he does.
All right.
This is typical. Typical Lazzy.
Hi, this is Brian Bergford with Altitude Dog Training. I'm here at my behavior center today, and we are looking at some footage of the rehabilitation process of Lazarus. Absolutely wonderful dog, incredible story. He originally was a guard dog actually at a crack house in Los Angeles, and the house was set fire to, and of course animal control picked him up and he was at a shelter for a little bit, and a wonderful woman drove out to California, rescued him from that situation, brought him back here, contacted me for some help with the training and rehab process for him because he had some serious issues coming out of that, as you can imagine. The house that he used to guard, some of the neighbors in that area reported that his owners were not very kind to him, to say the least, and so probably suffered some level of physical abuse, emotional abuse probably as well. So anyway, you know, that put him at a disadvantage and he became very wary of people, and so that was one problem in this rehab process that we needed to fix. Another one was when he became comfortable with people, becoming so hyper excited and over aroused that he would be very mouthy with them. He might drag people to the ground and just grabbing them with his mouth, trying to play with them, overpowering people, pushing them around, jumping on them until they fell, things like that. It was definitely a concern because he's a big boy, as you've seen in the video and will continue to see. So really putting some control around that and giving him, you know, getting him more connected with people, though, at the level where he would really pay attention to them and solicit some affection and just enjoy the connectedness between a dog and their human. That was really a huge thing, just get him to trust again. Also, just out of control toward other dogs. I think deep down really friendly with other dogs, but it was really difficult to tell because he was so energetic and overdid everything that he was kind of scary, right, to watch around other dogs because he was just out of control, particularly around small dogs. It took a long time to work him to the point where he could safely be with them, and just basically it boils down to two and a half year old dog with the brain of a 16-week-old puppy. And so we really hope you enjoy this video and the rehabilitation process, and this dog certainly has a special place in our hearts, so enjoy. This is Lazarus at the beginning of his 6-week rehabilitation and board and train. As you can see, he was resting under his bed, which is fairly peculiar. And I came to find out there was a pretty good reason for this. You can see his tail start to go there. How cute. But when the animal control officer found him chained in the yard of the burned down house, he had actually dug himself a hole and pulled a piece of scrap carpet over him for shelter. So look at that face. And this is a typical example of his response to strangers. This video was taken ironically on Halloween, and for Laz, the world was one really scary place. Taking him out in public at every opportunity was an important piece of his rehabilitation. Now, because people sometimes wanted to say hello to him, which made him incredibly uncomfortable, I elected to put a "Do Not Pet Me" vest on him so that he could experience the world without people trying to pet him all the time. Now here, you can see everything so new to him. An artificial Christmas tree with light bulbs was enough to freak him out. The beautiful thing about Lazarus, however, is the fact that he's so resilient and curious that he's always willing to try again. What a great lesson for all of us. One thing you'll notice by this point, Lazarus still had some hesitation, but he was much more willing to venture out than when we first met him, and he would get very easily spooked. Now, where his tail used to be tucked all the time, with continued guidance and exposure to new places and people, his tail started to relax a bit. It was still held low, but not tucked between his legs the entire time like before. Now, the first time I took him out like this, He just would not walk in front of me. He was either at my side or behind me as far as he could possibly get. Him walking ahead of me is actually a very positive thing because it shows that he's more relaxed and willing to venture out. It's a sign of growing confidence, which is exactly what we want to see. And now we're going to move on to his problems with arousal and take a look at that. This is Lazarus leaping up toward my face as I'm trying to videotape him. Very convenient and helpful. And as you can see with Alyssa, he's demonstrating the type of behavior he used to practice toward people when he wanted to play. He's tremendously persistent, biting, jumping, pushing, and just being completely unresponsive to any attempts made to stop him. So any type of efforts made to get him to sit or push him away simply escalated his excitement and his arousal. So he was just determined to make things go his way, turn everything into a game. Unfortunately, that was a very dangerous game, and even in the aftermath of this video, Alyssa, who is obviously being a terrific sport about all of this, did have some mild bruising as a result of Lazarus's rough play. Now, one critical element of this entire process was the decision to minimize physical contact with the exception of praise and affection in his training. I didn't want people trying to control him or issue any kind of physical corrections. He had grown up at the end of a chain and gotten everything as a result of being a bulldozer, very strong, so we needed to get away from that as soon as possible, which is one of the reasons I decided to train him on a remote electronic collar. Now, I've found that with this kind of training tool being used properly, it actually minimizes concern in the dog and minimizes conflict between the dog and handler. It allows for clearer communication overall. It was also the perfect tool because we could communicate with him at a distance and allow him the freedom of being off leash. And obviously we needed to take our time in getting there, so we kept him on leash until we were comfortable that he understood the information. And then go ahead and do a recall, and he should sit in front of you, right?
Roger, stop.
Nice job. Beautiful. Good. Now this is one of my awesome staff members, Amy, working Lazarus, and he was used to me working him, so this was part of the process of proofing or solidifying his training, and as you'll see, things were still pretty sloppy at this point. Now we're going to take a look here at this next clip of a new routine for when strangers come to the door.
Boy, yes! Good.
He actually used to rush the people and bark at them and be next to impossible to control. So this is great progress. Now he knows the place behavior, and having a place to go gives him a new job to do when people come over. And when he's on that spot, he knows that people will respect his space and he doesn't have to be scared they're going to come over and bother him. And this gives him tremendous sense of security and allows him to just relax and enjoy some treats, of course. Now we're getting into the evolution of his social development. He is very rough in his play, obviously at this point, not listening to cues from the other dogs. His first several sessions, in fact, it was very hard to find a dog that could even tolerate and handle being with him because he was so incredibly pushy. So I could only put him with maybe one dog at a time. I had to basically wrestle him away from other dogs at that point just to get him to back off. And he was so strong and he didn't care what people wanted that sometimes it literally took me 10 minutes to get him to calm down even a little bit. And by the end of it, I was tired and out of breath. Now here, obviously, he's already doing better on that front.
It's a good thing he doesn't have stamina, though. He's already tired.
Now, one thing that was incredibly important was I needed him with dogs that would correct him because he was responsive to that. But as you can see, he was only responsive if they really got after him. And it was up to us over time to help him listen to other dogs' cues, like in that clip where he just jumped on top of a dog, completely inappropriate, not friendly behavior in the least. And this is beautiful. This is the first time I saw him resting in playgroup. Actually a wonderful thing to see, and I knew we were really getting somewhere at this point. I mean, he had been to us at least 15 or 20 days before we ever saw anything like this.
Face! Yeah! Wow!
Now we're getting into gradually allowing him access to more dogs and eventually to taking the drag leash off altogether. And the purpose of having that in place was to be able to get a hold of him, because if something went wrong, he was just so completely unresponsive to cues from handlers, he would not take direction. Once he got to the point of being verbally responsive to us, we took the leash off though. Here Lazarus is playing pretty roughly, but the play is mutual until he pushes his luck, which he's been known to do. He gets too rowdy, and the other dog corrects him here. The nice thing about this is that she didn't have to hit him with a 2x4 for him to get the message and tone it down. So the next order of business was exactly this, and you witnessed him coming into playgroup, actually entering playgroup appropriately and not like a bull in a china shop. Now we're really starting to work on his behavior toward very small dogs. Okay, and it's no surprise that he had no concept of being gentle with them. He thought they were toys. The first session ever where he was with dogs at the Longmont Humane Society with Rhea and I, she's the behavior and training manager at the shelter, we were fairly mortified when he pounced on top of a Chihuahua and in a very unfriendly manner and tried to see if her head would fit in his mouth. So it was at that moment I didn't ever think he'd be able to be okay around small dogs, but luckily I worked with him and over time he proved me wrong. And now you have Lazarus at the end of his board and train in playgroup. He's relaxed, friendly, and you'll notice the other dogs are not worried about him. The other dog's level of comfort with him tells us a lot about his energy and the fact that they do not see him as a threat. Who would have ever thought he'd turn out to be a gentle giant? You can just see the peace he has now, that he's stable and balanced. Now, by the time this was taken, Lazarus was consistently demonstrating appropriate behavior towards small dogs, and you can see that he's very careful to lower his energy and play with them nicely. Today is November 11th, 2013. This is Laz, formerly not okay to be with small dogs. And he's with a few today. Just have him sit down with you. Laz, boy. And little Lucy loves Laz, which is about the cutest relationship ever. And here is his homecoming and reintroduction to his owner who rescued him. He hasn't seen her in a couple months at this point and actually greets her with cautious optimism, but is quick to warm up to her. This is actually very similar to the way he greets strangers. He does best when he's allowed a little time to warm up to them without them reaching out to pet him, reaching over his head. And once he decides he's okay with you, he's very sweet and loving. This is very different from how he was when he first came to our center. He used to be friendly toward us, but also very aloof and disconnected. He didn't like to get pet, and he certainly didn't seek out attention from humans, give them kisses, things of that nature. So I really have to thank my wonderful staff for all their help in this process of helping Lazarus connect with people once again. They were an invaluable part of his rehab.
I'm excited. I missed him so much.
Ooh, you should tell us about him a little bit. Tell us his story. You need to tell us that. Okay.
So Lazarus was abandoned, chained to a tree, and abandoned to a house that was set on fire in California. And I got...
What kind of house was that?
It was a crack house.
Oh!
It caught on fire from making drugs. The neighbors called animal control and said there's a dog chained to a house that's on fire. Can someone come get him? So the animal control officer that came out fell in love with Laz and made a video of him. And the video went viral. I, of course, got the video because I have a network of people in California I work with pit bulls, and they said, you have to go to California to get this dog. I said no. My husband said no. And I said, I can't do it. I got the video 4 more times from 4 other totally unrelated people and knew it was meant to be. Convinced a college buddy to drive to California with me because Laz only had 72 hours to live. So we drove to California, and when we got there, we got to the South Central shelter, and I told my buddy, if he bites the crap out of me, don't hurt him. And he said, you're crazy. He was extremely naughty, extremely naughty. So after he initially warmed up and so he started in the car, he would like come and put a paw on me, and then go back to the corner, and then like put half his body on me, and then go back to the corner. So by the time we got home, I think it was probably the first time he's ever bonded to a human.
Yeah.
So as soon as we got home, he was extremely territorial of me. He didn't really have appropriate interactions at all. So I would just be doing the dishes, and he'd come grab me by my elbow and throw me on the ground and lay on top of me. Because that was appropriate for him. I was his person. And then he started getting really guardy. If Jeff would come in the room, he would just stand in between me and Jeff, didn't want Jeff to touch me. I think a lot of it is because he had no idea how to bond with a human.
Yeah.
But some of the biggest strides we made are when we got him out of the car. I don't know if you remember me telling you this, but he had been chained literally since he was 8 weeks old, so he had never ran. He never ran. So we get him out of the car, we put him in our 2 acres, and we're like, you're home, buddy, go. And he just looks at us, and we didn't have any idea how. So Jeff started kind of playing and running around the yard with him, and he fell every time he tried to gain any more momentum than just walking, because he just didn't even know how to use his little legs.
Cute. I'm so happy for him. Good for you.
He's all excited. I don't know why he is as good as he is, coming from what he comes from. I think he's going to be a great dog.
Oh yeah.
I really do.
He's the best. He's the best I've ever had. He has the worst story, and he's the best. It's
pretty amazing.
Sweet one.
He's just a puppy in a big box.
That is a cute dog.
Mm-hmm. He's amazing.
That's the best.
Isn't it fun?
Yes.
You like it?
It's life-changing. For both of us.
Because it just opens up so many options.
Kidding? This is a miracle.